Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. I am sharing my 10 cards using Love From Lizi's August 2019 card kit called Flawless. This kit is just stunning. Lots of pinks and rose golds in it, and pink always makes me happy. I'm obviously not the only one though, since this kit sold out in less than 10 hours after it was released. There are still some add-ons available if you want a sampling of the kit. As always, the only way to guarantee receiving a kit is to sign up as a monthly subscriber. I have included links in the description box for subscriptions as well as the add-on items. Okay, let's jump into card number 1. I'm using a sketch from Sketch Saturday. This is number 341. I'm starting off using some of the white cardstock from the kit, and this is going to be the main background of the card. But I felt it was just too white and I wanted just a hint of a pink color. So I'm using some Distress Oxide ink. This is the Tattered Rose color. And then I'm trying out a new to me distress tool. So this is by Picket Fence, and this is one of their blending brushes. And it's really nice, very simple to get a nice clean blended look. And you can see I didn't put the ink all the way on the inside of this piece of cardstock because you're not going to see most of it. It's just going to be about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and add some specialty paper. This is beautiful gold embossed specialty paper. And then just a small piece of pattern paper. And then I'm matting all of this with some pink cardstock, and this is just cardstock from my stash. I felt it matched really nicely with some of the pinks in the pattern paper. It has quite a few different shades, so it's not very difficult to find several different pinks that'll coordinate beautifully. So then I have this thin strip of the pink cardstock going across that pattern paper, and I wanted to add just a little extra interest. So I'm using some of the white bubbles peel-offs, but instead of the actual bubble peel-offs, I'm using that little border that goes right in between them. It has sort of a really tiny diamond chain look to it. So I just love that it adds just that little extra interest there. So since I am adhering this piece of cardstock with the pattern paper onto this specialty paper, I find that the regular ATG doesn't hold it very well. So either I'll use score tape, or in this case I decided to use some liquid adhesive, and that seems to keep it in place. So go ahead and put that whole card front onto my card base. And then I use some more of the specialty cardstock. This is one of the mirror colors. It kind of has a light shade of sort of a rose gold. The specialty cardstock had several different shades of pinks and golds. It was really pretty, which unfortunately it did sell out very quickly. This is from one of the die cuts that's included in the kit. It's a nice hexagon shape with a sentiment: be happy, be bright, be you. So I thought that would look really lovely with that mirror cardstock. And just so the sentiment really pops, I put some white pearlescent paper behind it. And I just lined it up on that paper, kind of flipped it upside down so I didn't get any of the pencil marks, and then just cut slightly inside just so you won't see any of that white cardstock on the outside of the die cut. So just adhered that together using some liquid adhesive. And then I'm going to go ahead and pop that up on my card using some foam dimensional tape. And this is just some of the Scotch foam tape that comes in the big roll. It's a great way to purchase it because the one roll lasts quite a while, usually about 7 months for me. And now for a finishing touch, I'm going to use a few of the sequins that are included in the kit. All of the monthly kits include a sample bag of the sequins. So if you love sequins, do a lot of shaker cards, you can also purchase a full-size bag as an add-on item. So it's a nice option. This sequin mix has beautiful golds and silvers in there. Love the rose gold color. So I just put 3 of them in that upper left-hand corner, and I adhered them using some glue dots. So there is my finished card, and that is card number 1. So now moving on to card number 2. I used MFT sketch number 366. And if you are interested in any of the sketches that I use, including the measurements, I do share all of that information on my coordinating blog post, and that link is in the description box below. My blog is called The Best Things in Life Are Pink, and that is because I love the color pink. So for this card, I'm using some white pearlescent paper as the main background, although you're only going to see that little small portion again. And then I'm using this gray pattern paper with all of these small triangles all over the background. Really pretty pattern. And then using some more of this white pearlescent paper, I cut out 3 of these circle die cuts, and I'm just putting those on the right side of the card. I'm trying to make sure I get them spaced evenly. So I lay them on the card first, and then I start by attaching the one in the middle, and then I'll use the top and the bottom. And that seems to be the easiest way for me to get that nice even spacing. So then using some more of this mirror paper, I cut out 3 of these geometric hearts. These are just beautiful. I think it's my favorite die in the kit, although actually there's a sentiment die I love just as much. So for my first card, I completely forgot. The kit includes a nice glue pen. So this is by Nuvo, and it is just perfect for adhering these really detailed dies. The glue is by Nuvo, and it's called Smooth Precision. And I really like it because you can get just that small amount in those really tiny little areas, but it does take a bit of practice knowing how much pressure you need to squeeze so you're not suddenly getting a big blob out. For the sentiment, I'm using the stamp set that's included in the kit, and these are really fun because they're layered sentiment stamps. So I've never used a layered sentiment stamp before. I've done images, but this is the first time with the sentiment. So if you can just use the main sentiment, it has little diagonal lines going all the way across. So that is a nice look just by itself. So this one is your priceless. But if you want to add just that little bit extra, you can use the second part of the stamp. So it does take a little bit of lining up, and I did use my mini Misty for this. So I put some anti-static powder because I'm going to do some embossing, just to add that second little part that really makes it pop. The embossing powder I'm using is the color that's included in the kit. This is made by Love From Lizi, and this is the Platinum Tiara color. You can also purchase all of Love From Lizi's embossing powders individually, and she has so many beautiful colors. So let's go ahead and get that heat set. It's hard to see on the video, but it has this beautiful shine to it. Just adds that little bit extra. So rather than just put it on the card with that pink cardstock, I decided to add just a little bit of a layer. I pulled out one of the washi tapes that's included in the kit, put that down on some cardstock since the washi tape is slightly transparent. And then I'm just going to add here the sentiment strip right on top of that. And since the washi tape sort of has a slick feel to it, I want to make sure this piece doesn't pop off. So I'm here adhering it using some score tape. And then after I put it down, I remembered I wanted to just do a small fishtail on the end of that sentiment. So I just peeled it up slightly so I could cut that little notch on the side. And then I'll do the same with that washi tape layer. Just adds that little bit extra since that washi tape has a fun geometric pattern in the background with some different pinks. And then I'm going to be layering this over one of those circles with the heart, so it does add a little extra dimension in the middle. So I'm just using some really thin foam squares on both sides of that circle, and then just a small piece of score tape in the middle. That way I know it stays in place. And then just for a finishing touch, I'm going to use some of Nuvo's Dream Drops. This is not included in the kit, but I thought the color matched beautifully. This is the Love Potion color, and these are just beautiful since they have an iridescent look to them. So there is my finished card, and that is card number 2. Now moving on to card number 3. Now for this card, I did not use a card sketch at all. The background paper is this beautiful marble looking pink paper, and I just used a stitched rectangle die to cut that out. And then for all of my layering, I used some of the satin, it's kind of a blush color, really soft pink. This is another paper that's included in the specialty cardstock. And now I'm going to use this Polaroid frame that's included in the kit. It has this beautiful rose gold, sort of a lattice look on it. And it's a nice thick cardboard, almost a chipboard feeling. I decided to use some more of that satin cardstock for behind this Polaroid piece. So I just adhered it using some score tape. And then for the bottom portion of this card, I decided to use just some of the thinnest width of peel-offs, kind of a peach pink color. This was one that's included in the peel-off bundle for the month. And then I'll go ahead and adhere that panel onto that satin mirror cardstock. Put that whole card front onto a card base. And I do use a lot of ATG tape because I like to make sure my cards stay together. I've had too many of them have pieces that pop off, so I'm really careful about which adhesive I use. And before I ever give out a card to anybody, I kind of just double check to make sure everything's in place and it's not going to pop off. So for the sentiment on this card, I'm using one of the die cuts that's included in the kit. This is a fun little heart that has "You Are Loved" in the center, and it does have some nice rose gold foil to it. And then next, I'm just adhering one of these pre-tied bows onto the card. I love that they're pre-tied, that way I don't have to mess with them at all. So again, lots of adhesive. I put a small glue dot in the center, but then I also use some liquid adhesive. I'm gonna hold that in place using my ATG gun. And then just one final touch, I'm using some more of the Nuvo Dream Drops, and I'm just putting a small drop in the center of this little lattice ring that's on the bottom of this panel. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 3. Now moving on to card number 4. I used Freshly Made Sketches number 229. For the background of the card, I'm using this gray paper that has all of these geometric hearts all over it. And then for the squares on this sketch, I specifically chose this sketch because of one of the pattern papers is covered in all of these diamond shapes that has "You Are Loved" in the center. So I thought that was perfect, so I cut 3 of them out, layered them on some pink cardstock, then decided it needed just a little bit more to really make those diamonds pop. So I'm using some of the peel-offs from the kit, and these are really pretty. They have a white in the center with a gold foil on the edges. So I'm just using the thinnest width and just putting a small piece right on the very edge of that pattern paper. So it adds a nice shimmer, kind of shine to it, and it really adds that little extra contrast to make them pop. So I'm just using a little craft knife to cut off the very end of it. If I had thought about this ahead of time, I probably would have cut the pieces just a little bit longer and then tucked the end behind. But this works as well, and I've never actually had peel-offs come off of my card before. They stay in place really nicely. Next, I'm going to add this thin piece of gray pearlescent paper, and this is one of the specialty papers included in the kit. So I just adhered that on the left side of the card, and then just to add that little extra border to it, I'm using the widest width of the peel-offs. So again, these have the white in the center and a gold foil on the edges. And so this time I did cut them just a little bit longer, and I just tucked the ends behind, and then I'll use some ATG to adhere all of that in place. So I'm just laying all of these diamonds onto the card, trying to figure out the best placement for them, since I want them to be nice and evenly spaced apart. But I do want to go ahead and pop them up. So once I have them all in place, I add some of the foam dimensional tape to the back. And I adhere the one on the right, that's furthest on the right first. That way I can get a nice even spacing for the other two. And I love this pink with the gray together, and it's even fun with just that touch of gold. The background paper has this real hint of gold with that darker heart on there. So it's not a color combination I probably would use otherwise, but it really does look pretty together. So go ahead and put my card front onto a card base. And then for a finishing touch, I used one of the dies that's included in the kit. It has sort of a little rectangle that has 3 hearts in the center. And I just use that to cut out these 3 small hearts using some of the gold mirror paper. And I did decide to pop them up just using some real thin foam squares. So I'll make sure I get them nice and straight. And then I'm pulling out the Nuvo drops that are included in the kit. This is the silver lining color. And I just put a few of them, one on each side of the sentiment. I felt like it needed just a little bit more, so I added 3 of them on that lower diamond and then 3 more on that top diamond. So there is my finished card. This is card number 4. This kit definitely includes quite a few elements to add beautiful sparkle and shine on your cards. Now moving on to card number 5. This is MFT sketch number 323. I'm using pink and brown together, which is my absolute favorite color combination. I have some pattern paper that has beautiful sentiment. It has be you, be happy, be bright, just very uplifting, positive sentiments. And then for this paper behind, this has a lovely rose gold foil all over it with that lattice look. Very similar to that Polaroid piece, but it has more of a dark brown, kind of a gray color in the background. And then for the main background of the card, I'm using some more of that satin blush color. And I just layered all of this using some dark brown cardstock, and this is cardstock that I have in my stash. This is a fun sketch to combine a couple different pattern papers together. I do try to avoid mixing too many busy patterns together just because it's very distracting on a card. But adding those matted layers of cardstock is very useful to break up some of that busyness. So for the sentiment, I'm using the 1 in a million sentiment, and I decided to just leave it as just the sentiment and not put that second layer on there, because even with just that diagonal stripe background, it still stands out quite a bit, and I actually love that pattern. It has a kind of a fun look to it. So I just layered that sentiment on some more of the brown cardstock. I'll just adhere that onto my card, and since that right hand side hangs off of that end just a little bit, I'm using some thin foam squares just so it doesn't sag on that end. And then just a final finishing touch, I'm using a couple of these rose gold buttons. And I'm just adhering those onto the card using some of the larger glue dots. So overall, this is a fairly simple card, but I love all of that extra shine. So there is the finished card, and this is card number 5. So now moving on to card number 6. This is MFT sketch number 383. I pulled out one of the white tags that's included in the kit, and I didn't want it to have that really bright white color on the card, so I'm using that same Distress Oxide ink. This is the Tattered Rose color, and I'm just adding it to that upper portion and then the lower portion of the tag, since the middle part is going to be covered up with some other paper. So this is a very light color ink, but it adds just that little bit extra so it's not like super white on the card. So next I want to do some heat embossing using one of the diamond stamps that's included in the kit. So I went ahead and used some of this pink cardstock and cut out a stitched scallop circle. Used some anti-static powder and then some Versamark ink. And then the color embossing powder, this is the Copper Rose, and this is another of Love From Lizi's, and it has a beautiful color to it. It matches almost perfectly with some of the foil that's included in this pattern paper. So it's kind of hard to see in the video. The background paper for this card is using some of the pattern paper. It has pink in the background and then sort of a marble look using some glitter rose gold. It's really pretty. And then I'm layering that on some more of the mirror cardstock, some of the specialty cardstock. And then just go ahead and adhere my card front onto my card base. And now I'm going to assemble the rest of this tag. So I'm using some more of this mirror paper, using a larger piece than what's pictured on the sketch. So this is a square, because I wanted to make sure that this circle die cut would fit in there nicely. And sorry about that crazy reflection from my overhead lights. No matter what, whenever I use this specialty paper, I just get a lot of reflection. But every once in a while, you may just get a little glimpse of me because it is mirror cardstock. I also put one strip of that geometric washi tape in the center of that mirror paper, just to add a little extra interest. So I'm going to pop up this whole tag using some of the foam dimensional tape. The foam tape will also help hold that tag in place since it is pretty strong. If you're going to adhere anything onto this specialty paper in the background, especially like that glitter, you'll want something a little bit stronger than just ATG tape. So now I'm going to try to figure out which sentiment I want to put on this card. I first pulled out the Your Priceless, and I was going to do maybe a banner going across that whole lower portion, but I changed my mind and I wanted to do two separate sentiments. Well, not separate sentiments, but two separate words. So I have You're a Gem. And then rather than cut the Your Priceless sentiment apart, since you can use the Your word for a couple of the different sentiments, I'm just tucking the priceless word, I wrapped it around my acrylic block. I don't like to cut my stamps apart if I don't have to. So I used some of the marble paper that I used on a previous card. I just had a nice sliver of it available. So I decided to use that instead of just white cardstock. And I did end up having to stamp the Your word twice since I didn't get a great impression the first time. So I'm just going to put those two pieces of the sentiment on that lower right hand corner, and I decided not to put them straight, just to add a little extra interest. I kind of have them crooked, kind of reverse from each other, and I just pop those up using some thin foam squares. And then since it is a diamond, it needs a little more sparkle, so I'm just using a Wink Stella pen just to add that little extra glitter. And then I pulled out another one of the little bows. So again, adhering it with a small glue dot and then just a little bit of liquid adhesive. I'm gonna hold that in place with my ATG gun. And there is my finished card, and this is card number 6. So now moving on to card number 7. This is Sweet Sunday sketch number 39. I'm using two different pattern papers on this card and then a few of the specialty papers. So I have the brown pearlescent paper that's included in the kit as my layering paper for the background. And then I'm just using this thin strip of that satin blush color, putting it right below that sentiment pattern paper. And then just to add a little bit of separation from those pattern papers and the specialty paper, I pulled out the peel-offs from the kit using two different widths. I have the medium width on the very outside piece and then the very thin width in that middle piece. Cut them a little bit longer than the width of the card and then just tucked those ends behind. And then I decided it needed just a little bit more interest, so I'm using some of the peel-offs from last month's kit. This is the Sway design. Used the thinnest width, and it has sort of a scallop look to it. It has a peach in the center and then some gold foil on the edge. It has a really lovely look to it. So go ahead and adhere that panel onto my layering piece, and you might have noticed there's an oval cut out of the background. This is a great way to really stretch that paper, especially if it's some of this specialty paper. So there is that oval, and I'm just using that as the layering piece for this white oval. So go ahead and adhere that onto my card. And then for the sentiment, I'm using the Smile die that's included in the kit. And I just cut that out of some more of that satin blush color. Can you tell I really love the specialty cardstock? So just use that glue pen to adhere that sentiment die cut in place. And then I decided to cut out this rectangle piece. So this is another one of the dies that's included. So it has those 3 small hearts in the center, but I only wanted 2 of the hearts because I felt like it was too long for this card. I used some more of this brown pearlescent paper, and I wish I had thought of this before because I would have used the background layering piece to cut this piece out as well, but I didn't think about it beforehand, but that's okay. And then I used some more of that blush mirror paper for those 2 hearts that go in there. Then final finishing touch, I'm going to use some more of the Nuvo Dream Drops. This is that Love Potion color. Just put 3 of them on that right hand side below the sentiment. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 7. Now moving on to card number 8. This is Sweet Sunday sketch number 197. So this card has quite a few layers to it. I have some just the plain ivory cardstock for the background, and then also added some more of this specialty gold embossed paper. And then for the strip going down the card, this is some pink striped. It has a glitter effect to it. And I did layer all of these pieces in some more of this brown cardstock, but I wanted to add just a little extra shine on the side of this strip. So even though I did layer it with some of the brown cardstock, I put those peel-offs on the side as well. I just didn't want them without that cardstock because it would have showed like all of the specialty paper, that texture through the peel-offs, and I didn't think that would be a really great look. So that's why I added the regular brown cardstock as well and just left a wide enough border so I could put those peel-offs. And then just use another small piece of that satin blush paper just for that small banner in that upper left-hand corner. Just adhere that underneath the strip. And since there are a lot of layers, kind of a lot of thickness with all of these layers of paper and the specialty paper, so I am using just some real thin foam squares. I just cut little slivers of them for that upper and lower portion of this strip. And then I'll use some liquid adhesive since it's going to be on top of some more of this specialty paper. Just want to make sure everything stays put, stays down. I don't want anything popping off of my card layer. And I think this is the only card I decided to put just that thin white border of the card base showing. So now moving on to this large circle element on the card. I'm using one of the pattern papers that's all hexagons, and it has sentiments in the center of all of them. So I thought using a group of those was perfect in place of this circle on the sketch. So I went and chose a group of them that wasn't going to be sort of cut off on the edge of the paper. So if you cut out 7 of them, I mean, they almost look like a flower. So it's really fun, and you could cut these out individually and add sentiments to your card, but I love the idea of adding all 7 of them onto my card for that circle element. I was going to layer it with some of the pink cardstock, but I didn't feel like it had enough contrast. So I'm pulling out some more of this gold mirror. This is more of a pink gold mirror, and yeah, you can see me in there. This stuff is so reflective. I should smile and look super happy since I am while I'm making the card, but I'm more concentrating while I'm making sure to cut everything out. So I'm just leaving a very thin border all around, but it still adds just some beautiful shine. So I'll go ahead and pop all of that up using some foam dimensional tape. Make sure to get good coverage on there so none of the ends sag down at all. And then once again, since it is being adhered onto some more specialty cardstock, that foam dimensional tape has a nice strong adhesive. So then I pulled out these hexagon mirror stickers. These were included in last year's August kit, I believe, and I still had some left over, and I love that they fit perfectly with the hexagons on this pattern paper. And this is actually one of this month's add-ons as well. So I believe these were still in stock when I'm doing this voiceover. So a little finishing touch, I'm going to use some more of the sequins from the kit, and I just used some of the pink, put 3 of them in that upper right hand corner. And then I pulled out those Nuvo drops again since they're just beautiful. Add just a little extra touch on the sentiment. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 8. So now moving on to card number 9. This is Mojo Monday sketch number 519. This is a really fun sketch. It has some different elements to it. I didn't have a full sheet of the pattern paper that I wanted for the background, but since there's this strip, this little banner that goes across the middle, I was able to kind of make it look like I did have that full strip left over. So I just cut 2 different sizes, and I'm just gonna match them up together, and that pink cardstock gap that you see in the background is not going to be seen at all. So I'm using one of the copper mirror peel-offs. I think that is the name of this color, just to add a little bit of separation with those top 2 pattern papers. And then I'm using some more specialty cardstock for this strip in the middle, and then just a thin piece of some more of the pattern paper for that banner that goes across the middle of the card. And just to make sure that stays in place, I'm using some score tape on the back of it for adhesive. And again, this card is going to have a lot of extra shine, but I think it's actually hard not to make a card with the extra shine using this kit. And then I use the gray cardstock that's included in the kit for that very final layer. And for the sentiment, I used the add-on stamp set. It has more general sentiments. There's birthday and congratulations. There's anniversary, and then there's with love. I decided to use the with love sentiment for this card. So I cut out a circle die cut, and then I'm using my mini Misty to line them up together and then also get a really good stamp impression. So I am going to do some heat embossing using this one. So I have some gray ink, so I'll do that as that first layer. And then I'm going to use this copper rose embossing powder again for that second layer. So it does take a little bit of practice to line up that second piece. I also had to search to make sure I had the correct piece. I think on the love, it's upside down on the stamp set. So once I get those layered, which I think are nice and straight, I can go ahead and close my Misty. I'm going to add some anti-static powder. And then I'll use some Versamark ink, and I usually ink it up a couple of times just to make sure I have a really good impression. I'll pull out my embossing powder, sprinkle that all over there, and just kind of wipe off any of the little stray pieces. And then this is a small piece, so I am going to use my tweezers to hold it so I don't burn my fingers. I have my pink heat gun. Again, it's hard to see in the video, but it adds just a lovely shine, and it matches just perfectly with those mirror peel-offs. So I'll add that onto some pink cardstock for a little layer. Pop that up using some more foam dimensional tape. And then I'm going to get to a new thing for me. So the kit includes some gilding flakes. Never used those before. So I did have to watch a couple of videos to figure out what I'm supposed to do with them. So I pulled out some of the gray cardstock from the kit, put a wide piece of score tape on there since I watched that you can adhere these to anything sticky, especially something like score tape since it is a super sticky tape. So I use the heart die that's included in the kit, and then also a previous, you probably saw the little swan with the heart in the center. So I really just wanted the heart. So I cut all of those out, pulled off the one side of the score tape, and now I'm taking these gilding flakes and just pressing them onto the adhesive side of those die cuts. So like I said, I've never done this before. This was something very new. I was told you you need to put it in a box or something because this stuff flies around everywhere. It's very lightweight. So I think I may have gotten too many of the gilding flakes at first. So I end up having to kind of scratch some of it off because it was really thick. So it's definitely something I suggest you practice maybe a few times. But I did like the overall, or the end result. Has a very lovely look to it. And then here I'm trying to scrape kind of that edge of the heart because some of the little flakes go over the end and then it doesn't have that really nice definition, kind of like that strong edge of the heart. So like I said, practice with them. They're definitely something fun to try. So once I have what I thought was a really good look for them, I'm going to adhere those to the card following the sketch using the hearts in place of the stars. So I have 3 of them just kind of arced in that upper left-hand corner. And then just one final finishing touch, I'm going to use the silver lining Nuvo drops, and I just put 3 of them in that lower corner of the card. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 9. So now moving on to my final card, this is card number 10. I used Mojo Monday sketch number 457. For the background paper, I just have some kind of a blush colored cardstock, and I'm layering all of that with the gray pearlescent paper that's included in the kit. And I didn't have a lot of it left over, so where I'm layering this pink striped glitter paper, I just put 2 thin strips. That way I don't have to use a full sheet. And I did make a little mistake here. I had already adhered that glitter paper onto the cardstock, and then I remembered I wanted to add this little paper clip with the heart, and it adds a little bit of dimension since it'll have that back part of the paper clip. So I pulled off that pattern paper, and now I'm just going to put some foam dimension all over the back of it, and I'll just go around that back of the paper clip. So that way it's nice and even on the card and it doesn't sort of bend upward. So I'll remove the backing on all of that paper, put a few of the pieces on the back of the top of the heart, and then also a little bit of glue in that on that foam piece that's behind the paper clip since it doesn't have any adhesive. So I'll press that all nice and firm, and then I'll adhere that card front onto my card base. And I also have this thin piece of that gray pattern paper with all of the little geometric hearts on it. So it matches nicely with the paper clip. And then I just put a piece of that foam dimensional tape on the top of that pattern paper, and then just use some liquid adhesive to adhere the bottom portion. So now I'm going to make a sentiment using 2 of the dies that are included in the kit. So one has the hexagon with the 3 little sayings in there, and I just cut out the BU, and then I also cut out the smile. And then I searched through my dies. I was looking for an ampersand. I was really excited that I found one. This was actually included in Christmas Mega Pack. This is one of Love From Lizi's from last year. So I just trimmed out that little ampersand. And I used some more of that mirror specialty cardstock to cut all of those words out. Then I'll use that glue pen to adhere all of those onto the lower portion of the pattern paper. I did end up changing that overall look of the card sketch, but sometimes card sketches are really just for a starting inspiration point. So once I get that sentiment all adhered in place, I'm going to go ahead and cut out a couple more of the small hearts, and I used more of the specialty paper. So I have some of that gray pearlescent paper and then also that satin blush paper. I'm just going to adhere 2 of those above the sentiment using some of the liquid adhesive. And I felt like that lower portion of the heart on the paper clip was kind of sticking up just a little bit. So I tried to put some liquid adhesive underneath it. That wasn't quite working, so I cut out a really small piece of the foam dimensional tape and I just tucked that underneath so it wasn't popping up. And then just one finishing touch, I'm going to use 3 small drops of the Silver Lining Nuvo drops in that lower left-hand corner. So there is my final card. This is card number 10. So now here's just a quick recap of the 10 cards I made using Love From Lizi's August 2019 card kit. Again, this card kit has already sold out. There are some add-ons still available, and I will add links in the description box if you are interested. So here's everything I have left over from the kit. I still have 2 full sheets of cardstock and then quite a bit of the other cardstock. A little bit left of the specialty cardstock. Lots of small scraps of pattern paper, and then 1 full sheet of the pattern paper still left. There's the peel-offs, quite a few of those still left. I just used a couple pieces. I have the 2 rolls of washi tape. I ended up not even using one of them. 2 of those heart die cuts. Still lots of the sequins. I have 4 buttons and 2 more of the bows. These are really so pretty. Then I have 1 more of the white tags. Still have quite a bit of the gilding flakes. Those last forever. I have the Nuvo embossing pen, which I never did use, and then of course I still have the Nuvo liquid glue pen. There are the 4 dies from the kit, and then the Nuvo drops. I have more of the embossing powder because that will last a long time, and then of course the stamp set. So still plenty of goodies to make some more cards. I will add a link in the description box for the add-ons, as well as a link for subscribing to the kits. So next month is the September Super Kit, and Lizi always has extra goodies in there. It's not a kit you want to miss out on. So if you subscribe now, you will be guaranteed receiving that kit next month. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I always appreciate the support. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.